My message to the youth is this. You should obtain the 12 jewels of life no matter what. And the 12 jewels of life are knowledge, wisdom, understanding, freedom, justice, equality, food, clothing, shelter. And after that, love, peace, and happiness. Peace.
What's up, all my mind magicians? This is Diction Uno. You're tuned into Hustle-Mind-Magik. And as you see in the clip there, the Rza is talking about the 12 jewels from the nation of gods and earths, which is from the 5% tradition that broke off as a faction of Islam. And in the Bible, you got the 12 apostles. Now, Carl Jung talks about how there's archetypes that they're really representing. And we're going to get in some clips here from Reverend Ike. If you're not familiar with him, definitely look up his work. He passed away in 2009. And the great Neville Goddard as well. He's a mystic who's really influenced my life by looking at the Bible through the lens of God being the imagination, and that it really being a mind manual, or like a grimoire, if you will, into some sort of magic of the mind. And so what we're getting into in this video is what the 12 disciples or apostles represent. And disciples, as Reverend Ike will point out, breaks down how they can be broken down into disciplines or different aspects of the mind. And Neville Goddard will go through that as well. And we're going to learn how you can recognize those and train those to manifest through visualization, and to get clear messages from intuition and really be connected to the source or the God energy within you. And what it does is correlates in here into hip-hop, really through the Rza, because the nations of gods and earths were very influential in the beginning of hip-hop, from the slang and everything else, especially later on into the 80s, around the golden era, like Rakim as an example, or Busta Rhymes. And so what we're doing is correlating that, and also with the 12 chakras, the 12 energy centers. And there's 7 that people are mainly familiar with. We get into the 12 here, and it's going to show how these things correlate. And what I like to do with this type of information when we're looking at, mysticism, and when we're looking at ways we can use the mind to better shape the world around us, to get our hustle right, to get the things that we want to get out of life, and to achieve the dreams that we wanted, to connect to the higher source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is I like to find where things connect. Not only does that repetition help with the subconscious and give it a fresh look at different information, I think that when we find the common ground between things, that there's more common ground than there are differences. So when we'll take a look here is how to discipline and recognize the 12 aspects of the mind and how they correlate to the 12 jewels, which you could also put as like the 12 needs or 12 pillars, just the things that everybody would need in life to really be at their highest potential. And that's what we're all here about, or here, that's what we're all about here, rather, at Hustle-Mind-Magik. So welcome you to the inaugural episode, and we're going to go ahead and draw some parallels and bring in, Reverend Ike, after we see that Rza breaks down what the 12 jewels are, and see how you can find the connections. Drop comments down below if you're finding connections that we haven't, or if you can see any other kind of 12 aspects of things where these are in other traditions that we can apply to our life. So in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Because I'm going to give you a list of the disciplines, the disciples, the functions of your mind. And your homework is going to be to recognize these disciplines, recognize these aspects. Another step in making a disciple of an attribute of the mind is the call. You must summon the faculties of your being. You must summon your indwelling mind qualities. I heard Oral Roberts and his son Richard talking about something very interesting. The father said that when Richard was a little fella, he was about to have some warts cut off of his hand. And so his father said to him, well, Richard, do you know that if you believe that God will take those warts off of your hand without you having to have them taken off surgically? And so he said, well, Dad, what do I have to do? He said, well, you have to release your faith to God. And so he said, all right. He said, I want to do that.
And so he said, well, come on, I'm going to pray for you now, and you release your faith to God. And so Richard, the little fellow, began to say, faith, go to God. Faith, go to God. Oh, this is another cue. The mastermind, Jesus tells us, except you become as a little child, you shall in no wise enter in. You see, he was told, okay, if you want God to do this for you, you just have to let your faith go to God. So he said, faith, get up, go to God. And you see, this is a summoning of faith. This is a calling forth of faith. So you must call your disciples. This week you're calling your disciples. You're going to practice this. I've given you a list of the disciples, and I'm going to give them to you verbally in just a moment. But you're going to call them this week. I want you to call them every day this week for at least 7 days. Most of you, if you're like me, you'll continue to do it. And give them instructions. You wonder why certain things are going wrong in your life. You haven't given your disciples instructions. You must call them. You must summon them. You must command them. Another step in the making of a disciple or disciplining the attributes of the mind is teaching and training. I quote Reverend Ike again, tell your mind what to think. You must practice all of the positive truths that you know and then practice the practicing. See, that's another thing around here. Not only have you got to learn how to think right, you have to what? Practice it. And not only do you have to practice it, you have to do what? Practice the practicing. Do you know how many years it took you to learn how to get your thoughts all screwed up? And that's another thing, you know, some people come here and they just want a one split-second zap. Reverend Ike, work a miracle for me. Uh-oh. Reverend Ike, zap me one time so I can get rid of my arthritis and rheumatism, so that I can go right on back and think like I've been thinking and live like I've been living. Don't tell me to change my thinking, Reverend Ike. Don't tell me to change my mind, just zap me. That's like a drunk man coming in here saying, well, Reverend Ike, I don't want to stop drinking my liquor, I just don't want to be drunk. So just zap me so I won't be drunk, but don't bother my liquor. But I want you to know I'm getting down to some new business in this ministry, and you can't get around the formula of the Apostle Paul. Be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, I love zapping people, and sometimes I zap people. Sometimes I zap people right out of their wheelchair. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that successful living is a way of life, which is a way of thinking. Good health is a way of thinking. Love and happiness are a way of thinking. Success and prosperity are a way of thinking. Money is a way of thinking. Write that down and you say that over and over this week until you can hear it in your sleep. Everything is a way of thinking. And I must learn and practice that way of thinking. Then I must practice the practicing. This is a good self-examination question for you. How long did it take me to learn my negative ways? How long did it take me to learn my negative thinking? And you see, after people have thought negatively all these years, they come in here and they want to get rid of it all in a zap. Yes, many times you do get some wonderful zaps, and I thank God for the zaps. But if you want to be healthy, you better learn how to think healthy. You better learn how to change your thinking. And to establish your thinking in God, you have to teach and train the attributes of your mind, and it's a daily job. Another step from making a disciple of the attributes of your mind is study. Say that with me. Study. From 2 Timothy, the 2nd chapter and the 15th verse, study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Now that one little word is what a lot of people want no part of. No, Reverend Ike, I just want to zap. Don't tell me anything about studying. Coming out here on Tuesday nights in the cold to study. Reverend Ike, it's too cold. Oh, no, Reverend Ike, just zap me so I can get some money to get these bills off of my back. I don't want to study. And I'm good at zapping you so you can get some money. But I want to do more than zap you. I want to let you know that money is a way of thinking and teach you how to think that way continually so that you can have money continually. So I want to be more than just a zapper to you. I'll zap you, but let me teach you. The Master says again, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. And yes, Jesus did. He went around zapping people too. He even zapped some of them out of the graveyard. But to his disciples, he said, what? Take my yoke upon you and learn. Oh, when you get to the point where you figure you don't need to learn anything else, boy, you are in the saddest possible shape. So don't you ever reach the point where you don't think you need to learn. Now I'm going to call your attention to St. Matthew, the 10th chapter and the first verse. Notice what Jesus, the God-conscious mind, does with the 12 faculties of his mind. And I tell you what, before I even read this, I'm going to give you a list of the 12 disciples and what they symbolize as faculties of the mind. Then I'll show you what the God-conscious mind, what the God-conscious man does with the 12 faculties of his mind, because this is what you must do. You know, there's too much of this reading the Bible thinking, well, that's what happened then. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got news for you. The Bible is what's happening now. Yeah, I got some more news for you too. Jesus is not what did happen. Jesus is what's happening right now. But you see, this is the problem with the theologians. The theologians have locked Jesus up into the past and into the future. Jesus is not a was or a will be. Jesus is. Jesus is what's happening right now. And you see, we've got to get God, we've got to get the Bible, and we've got to get Jesus out of the was into the is. God says, I am. And this business of Jesus and the 12 disciples that we're studying about in this series, I want you to understand that these are things that are happening within your mind, within your being. When? Right now. Right here and right now. You have your 12 disciples, whether you know it or not, or whether you do anything with them or not. If you don't do anything with them, they're surely going to do something with you. And if you don't tell them what to do with you, baby, Judas will hang you. Thomas will doubt you. Peter will deny you. Philip won't even know the Father. They'll go to sleep on you while you're praying. You'll be wondering why your prayer's not answered. Your disciples are sleeping. The disciples are what's happening right now. Jesus is what's happening in me right now. This is what I'm trying to show you. And these disciples, these disciplines of your mind will serve you if you train them, if you teach them, if you call them, if you recognize them, if you command them, if you commission them. They'll watch while you pray. Here now are the names of the 12 disciples of Jesus of the God-conscious mind and the qualities that they represent. Simon, later surnamed Peter. Simon represents the faculty or the quality of hearing, right hearing. And after right hearing develops rock faith. Therefore, Simon Peter represents the esoteric faculty of hearing which develops faith. The second disciple, a quality of the mind, is a brother, a relative of Peter. His name is Andrew, representing strength and courage. The third disciple is James, son of Zebedee, which represents judgment, righteous judgment, and wisdom. The fourth disciple is John, which represents love and affection. And I'll just make some more remarks here about John for a moment. In the Bible, in certain cases when Jesus and John were mentioned, John was lying or leaning upon Jesus' breast. This is where we are able to identify that quality and what it represents in the psychology of man. John represents the quality, the faculty of love and affection. The fifth disciple of Jesus, or the fifth discipline of the God-conscious mind, is Philip, representing power, power of the word, power of expression, power of demonstration. The sixth disciple of Jesus, or the God-conscious man, is Bartholomew, representing imagination, your power of visualization. The seventh disciple of Jesus, the God-conscious mind, is Thomas, representing understanding, spiritual reasoning, denial of evil. The eighth disciple of Jesus, or the God-conscious man, is Matthew, representing the will of God, will of good. The ninth disciple of Jesus, or the God-conscious man, is James, son of Alphaeus, sometimes called James the Less, and he represents the discipline of order, divine order. The 10th disciple of Jesus, or the God-conscious mind, is Thaddeus, representing praise. And the 11th disciple of Jesus is Simon the Canaanite, representing zeal, zealous to hear good news, hearer of good news. Now, let me comment on Simon for just a moment. In the Hebrew, Simon comes from the word Shama. And I was able to identify one of the words that I use quite often when I speak in other tongues, Shama. And I was wondering what it was, what that phrase was. But it means to hear, to give ear. Now, the 12th disciple of Jesus is Judas. And it may surprise you. But Judas, in the correct sense, means life. Life conserver and detachment. Now, let us notice what the God-conscious man does with these 12 faculties of the mind. Matthew, the 10th chapter, and the first verse. And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits, to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Let us call our 12 disciplines of mind. And in doing this, I'm going to read the verse of Scripture again from St. Matthew, the 10th chapter, and the first verse. Repeat after me. And when Jesus had called unto him, his 12 disciples, he gave them power. You as a God-conscious mind, you as a God-conscious person must call, must discipline, must teach, must train the disciplines, the aspects, the qualities of your mind, and give them power. And as I say, this is not something that happened way back there, but Jesus is what's happening now. Place your hands now in a calling position and repeat this after me. Right here and right now, I call and command, the functions of my mind, to serve my God purposes, to serve my good purposes. Disciples, you will serve God in me. You will serve the good in me. You will serve the Christ of my being. And nothing else. Thus endeth the lesson.
So as we saw there in the Reverend Ike video, or rather we listened to, the first disciple that he breaks down is Simon. And so we're going to get into what Neville Goddard has to say about this. And really, him and Reverend Ike are pretty much 100% congruent in how they interpret biblical texts. And the mystic lens, definitely not the theological lens. And I would argue that's really the only way to interpret the material and really get the value that's in there. But if we take a look to correlate here to the 12 jewels, as Reverend Ike had mentioned, the first one is Simon, And Neville points out that Simon, the first attribute or disciple of mind, he represents hearing. So if we look at the 12 jewels, as Rza had stated, from the Supreme Mathematics, knowledge is going to be your first jewel, and then the second jewel is wisdom. And if we're not hearing things, from a higher part of our consciousness, and that's really the higher aspect of the higher mind, we're not going to be able to attain really any knowledge or wisdom at that point. And it's going to bring us to the third jewel here, which is understanding as well, because really if you can't hear things, you're not going to understand them, but you have to hear them on a deeper level. And that's what that points out, that when we train, Neville goes on to speak on how if we train the disciple of Simon, or that quality of our mind, because again, all these apostles or disciples, which you could take from discipline, are really about disciplining the mind to only hear that which is going to serve you, to only hear the things from a fourth dimensional perspective in that way. So then if we go to the second quality of mind, that disciple is Andrew, and that one is courage. And so that's faith in oneself, as Neville breaks it down, which asks no man's help, as he says, but alone appropriates the consciousness of the quality desired in spite of the reason or evidence of the senses. So it's really living in that quantum realm and what you're visualizing in your imagination to bring forth into the physical reality. And if we take a look at the second jewel, that would be the wise way to proceed through the world, because you'd really see how things are actually operating. And we go to the third jewel of understanding, or the fourth jewel of freedom. We're going to see both in those aspects. It's going to give you the freedom to create what you want in your reality and move forward that way. And then if we go and look at the third disciple, as broken down by Reverend Ike, what Neville has to say about that, he brings up the next two, which is James and John. And James is the just, the righteous judge, and his brother John, the beloved. Justice, to be wise, meant to be administered with love, ever turning the other cheek, and at all times returning good for evil, love, hate, non-violence for violence. So right there we see direct correlation, because these aspects of the mind actually bring forth and represent justice and equality and really righteous judgment. And you can see how that correlates directly right there. And so if we go down to the next disciples that are being called forth, the fifth disciple, as we've already covered 3 and 4 there, is Philip. And this one, as Neville puts it, was asked to be shown the Father. The Father being like consciousness or awareness itself, because we exist because of awareness itself, that we're aware, conscious, sentient beings that are aware of ourselves, or pure, faceless, formless awareness, as you would put it in the mystical teachings. So we take a look at that with Philip. The aspect of mind that this is going to represent is the awakened man who knows that the Father is the state of consciousness in which man dwells. And so if we take a look at the fifth jewel, we're back on justice again. And you're seeing a correlation there, because if you have this understanding, you're going to act just towards people. You're going to, find the proper aspect of mind to find justice for yourself. The sixth disciple is Bartholomew, and this quality of mind is the imaginative faculty, as Neville states it. And this quality of mind, once awakened, distinguishes one from the masses. So, an awakened imagination places the one so awakened a head and shoulders above the average man, giving them the appearance of the beacon of light in a world of darkness. No quality separates man from man, as does the disciplined imagination. This eye is the separation from the wheat from the chaff. And so when we look at the equality there, if you're going to have this level of understanding, even though it seems in a juxtaposition, because it says it places one above that. What really happens is when you have that kind of awareness, you're going to see the oneness of all things, that everyone is you pushed out, as Neville would put it, or the connectedness of all people, beings, and energy. And that's going to bring you to a state of equality. And that's where I could see a correlation there. The 7th is Thomas. And that this, discipline quality doubts or denies every rumor or suggestion that is not in harmony with that which has been commanded to enter. So really it's just about dismissing anything that is a belief that's not going to serve you would be one way of breaking that down. And really that's food for the mind. If we look at the 7th jewel of food, and you can correlate that. Obviously you need food and clothing and shelter in the 12 jewels. And if you don't have those, that's going to take away from you really being able to even have the safety and space to train the mind. So again, it kind of just points out where you can take the mental and spiritual aspects and put them into the tangible, which is something I really like about the 12 jewels. So then we go to the 8th, and the 8th disciple that's being broken down here by Neville is Matthew, and that's the gift of God. This quality of the mind reveals man's desires as God's gifts. So, and in this level of mystic teachings, it's that if we desire something, that's a message directly from God, and it already has the formula within it to be fulfilled. And if we look at that, in the 12 jewels, you're looking at clothing. So if you clothe yourself in this knowledge that any desire you have is already yours, so long as you believe that, as you believe, self shall be done unto you. I can see where there's a correlation there. But of course, then we talked about, in the tangible world that the 12 jewels of Islam deal with. Obviously you're going to need those basic needs, kind of, you could bring that back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. But you need those basic needs first. And that's what to focus on first, so you can bring forth these other things. So you can see where, again, the physical, spiritual, and mental planes, or mind, body, and soul, these three temples are coinciding when we look at the correlation between the 12 jewels and the 12 disciples as aspects of mind. So then we move on from the 8th, which is Matthew. The 9th disciple is called James, and this is the quality of discernment. And so when we look at the 9th jewel, that's shelter. And if you have discernment, that's going to give you shelter from any storm that you're going to be able to weather, because you're going to be able to see, really that it's an illusion that there's even a storm there in the first place. And this will give you shelter from falling to the weaker aspects or problems of the mind, like anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. So then we move on to the 10th, and that is Thaddeus. And this is the disciple of praise. And so this is like being happy that you already know the blessings coming. You already have that belief in that. And when we look at the 10th in the jewels, that's love. So really, again, pretty much a direct correlation here, because if you're in celebration, that you can bring forth that which you wish to experience, you're going to have love for yourself and everyone else. And it's really that celebratory vibe. And that's just pure love, So then if we go down to the 11th, on the disciples, it's aspects of mind. This is Simon of Canaan. And this is about hearing good news. So you're not going to listen to doubts in the mind. You're not going to listen to other outside doubters, as far as if you have this aspect of mind trained, like Reverend Ike talks about, and like Neville's breaking down here. And if we look at the 11th jewel, that's peace. And that's peace of mind. Again, direct correlation, and two really great lessons you can get. If we get inner peace, or one way it's put in the Bible is seek the kingdom of heaven first, which under the mystical, interpretations of these teachings, you're going to see the kingdom of heaven as the mind or consciousness. You're not going to see it as a place in the clouds. So you can see right there that if you have that inner peace, then you're going to be able to have that quality of Simon, and you're going to be able to, bring forth that which you wish to experience that much more. So then we get to the 12th, and that is happiness in the 12 jewels. And then when we go to the disciples as a quality of mind, that's Judas. And that's often misunderstood. Neville talks about this, and Reverend Ike mentions it too earlier in the clip that we, displayed here for everybody to hear. And did such a great job of breaking that. I love Reverend Ike's energy. He definitely brings something different, even though him and Neville's interpretations are pretty much spot on with each other's. He brings this different, swagger and energy to things that I really enjoy. But if you look at that 12th one of Judas, this is when you die to the old self. And really, I've never been happier than when I died to my old self. Now, it's the quality of mind that when disciplined, it's not going to betray you like he did in the parables, because remember, it's an aspect of mind. And then if you're doubting yourself, you're going to betray that aspect of mind. So you can see these interesting correlations, and I'm sure you can go ahead and comment below if you have different correlations you can see, or maybe you don't agree with the correlations of how these two teachings can correlate. But this was Neville's perspective on things, and again, it's always really going to align pretty well with Reverend Ike's. There's not really much of a difference. They just have different styles, and they bring different things to everything. But I love seeing the correlations between the metaphysical knowledge and spiritual knowledge. And as somebody who's been involved in the hip-hop culture and as an artist and MC for a long period of years, and really studied the craft, and been blessed enough to meet some of my heroes in the game, a lot of them, and then even work with some of them, a lot of them I have really deep metaphysical knowledge and spiritual knowledge, and a lot of that is embedded within the hip-hop culture, but often overlooked. I also think it's a way, by presenting these things, that we can update some of this information or connect to a new group of people, because this stuff has really helped me turn my life around in a lot of ways. So go ahead and click the subscribe button and hit the like if you liked what you heard today. It's the first episode, so I appreciate you for tuning in to Hustle-Mind-Magik. I'm your host, Dick Uno, and we'll definitely be coming back with more episodes that connect entrepreneurship, investing, hip-hop, and the metaphysical knowledge all in one place, so you can get your hustle right, your mind right, and you can apply the magic to your life and the universe. Have a great day.
A lot of people walk around and they ain't even really alive, You gotta find your purpose and go at that, no matter how scary it is. It's true though. It's as few do what few will do to live like most will never live. Do you really want it? I'll tell you right now that I do. Another highly charged day in a life that seems damn near cartoonish.